Welcome to the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast, brought to you by Phoenix Boats. Now, here are your hosts, Alabama Bass Trail Program Director, Kay Donaldson.
Welcome into the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. I'm Kay Donaldson, the Director of the Alabama Bass Trail, and your host for this week's podcast. And this is the podcast for the week of November the 6th, aka the post ABT 100 podcast from Smith Lake. Wow, what a weekend. As fall tournaments happen in Alabama, traditionally we have some weather delays. And this time it wasn't due to a thunderstorm or tornadoes or snow, but fog. We see that traditionally at our championship almost every year. We've had a fog delay at our championship, but this year we didn't have it there, but we did have it at Smith Lake. And the way that the launch area is at Smith Lake, when you get close to the dam, it does start getting foggy. So we did travel out to the mouth where you can choose to go to Rock Creek or Ryan Creek. Rock Creek was clear, Ryan Creek was not, so we had to delay the start of the tournament probably an hour and 10 minutes. Not ideal, but after we were talking to anglers throughout the day, their practice really turned on after 10:30 or 11 o'clock. So they didn't mind missing those first few minutes of the day, but they were hoping to have a full 8-hour fishing day, and some did not. So that's kind of how things went there at Smith Lake. By now, if you've listened or seen any social media, you do know that BPT pro Jesse Wiggins and his brother Jordan won the tournament. They took home over $32,000 with the win. They, had a tremendous sack of fish, 17.5 pounds. We saw the week before that at the Fish Talk tournament, 16, just a little over 16 took it. But 17.5 took the win, again, $32,000. But if you didn't see the recap of Haley, Jesse's fiance, then you can't really understand what this week was to the Wiggins. If you listen to the podcast before this one, we recorded on Sunday night at about 8 p.m. They had just gotten into Table Rock up in Missouri to fish the Toyota Championship. And, they basically went in, connected their internet, and jumped on a call with me. We were originally supposed to do it about 7:15. They didn't get there until about 7:45. So we jumped on about 8 o'clock to do the podcast. Eat, go to bed. They pre-fished Monday, Tuesday there at Table Rock. The lake was off limits on Wednesday. And then they fished the tournament on Thursday, Friday. Jumped in their cars, drove their trucks a good ways. In the meantime, I think Haley and Whitney flew up to Table Rock, were there when they came off the water, rode back with them halfway, and then switched drivers and then drove them home the rest of the way. I think they actually got home maybe 3.5, 4 hours prior to our anticipated launch time of 6:45. Again, we were about an hour late in getting to launch, but they really were in the state of Alabama or at home less than 4 hours before we blasted off for the Alabama Bass Trail 100 on Smith Lake. So anyone who doesn't understand what it's fishing like at the top level, and I consider the ABT a top level tournament because you can fish against guys who have won the Toyota Series, Brent Crow, guys who competed in it. We had a lot of guys. Lee Black, he fished with his brother Lucas. He was in that event as well. Jacob Walker missed our event to be in the final day of the Toyota Series Championship. I was just thinking of some of the others that were, I know there's others that are there. Michael Hood was there. He missed the ABT 100 for the Toyota Series Championship. So it's not just Jesse and Jordan that did that. They are the ones who made the sacrifice to drive all the way back. It is their home lake. They had just finished third in a tournament there the week before. So it certainly made sense for them to do that. But when you think of the expense of flying your spouse out to Table Rock to help drive you back and all the things, there's a lot that goes into being able to make sure that you're there. And they didn't get to practice all week. And certainly conditions changed. We had 30-degree temperature dips from the time they fished last Saturday to the time we fished this weekend. Now they had a 1 hour and 15-minute fog delay by the time we got everyone out. So a lot of things changed and they had to adapt. And I'm not going to have them on this podcast just simply because we just had them on last week, and you're going to get to hear the Academy winners tackle box recap from them. You're also going to get to read the story from them, and then you'll get to see it on TV. So I'm going to forego having them on the podcast today. We are going to catch up with the Angler of the Year, Mr. Jonathan Collins Derek, and we'll talk about that when Goob gets on here. But Derek had some health issues, and his dad had some health issues going into this week. And it was best for him to miss this event, even knowing that they were leading the Angler of the Year race. Family comes first. They own a family business. It was best for him to stay home, run the business, and prepare for his dad's surgery, which is actually happening today. This is Monday, November the 6th, and his I think they said a quadruple bypass is going to take place at 12 o'clock. So, our thoughts and prayers go out to Derek and his dad and his entire family. But we are going to catch up with Goob in just a little bit to talk about. I want you to hear his story and how he and I actually got to know each other. He had fished with us for a couple of years, but I didn't personally know him. So we're going to talk about that, talk about how we got to know each other, talk about, some trials that he went through on the Alabama Bass Trail just as recent as last year's championship at Lake Jordan. So we're going to talk about that and then talk about his magical year on the Alabama Bass Trail 100 with Derek. So we'll get to that, but we are going to also talk to a guy who has been the voice of the Alabama Bass Trail since day one, Mr. Robbie Floyd. You've seen probably a post from myself on the Alabama Bass Trail page as well as my personal page talking about Robbie moving on and doing something different. Actually, not really different. He's been doing this all along, but we just entered an era to where it was so many conflicts with what we're doing that he agreed with me that it was probably time for him to really commit to that and us commit to doing something else. So, again, can't wait to have Robbie on. We laughed and cut up over the weekend and just reminisced about some things. So I said, hey, why don't you come on the podcast and let everybody kind of hear this stuff? Because it really has been a journey, and it's really been like a marriage between he and I. Um, and he's not just an MC. I mean, he's been there when I've had so many doubts and so many woes and so many things. He's been through when I've had to go through tournament directors and replacing them and knowing how critical that position is. And he was with me last year about this time, actually, November the 4th, when I wanted to throw my hands up in the air and absolutely quit and think that there was absolutely no way I could come back from having to replace two very important team members. So he has been my confidant. He has been my friend. He's been my MC. He's been my buddy out on the water. And he's been the voice of reason a lot of times. When your spouse can't be that because they don't experience what you go through on a day-to-day basis. They can lend you support at home, but they just can't understand what's going on out there in work world. So he's going to be on in a little bit, but I did want to talk a little bit more about the ABT 100 at Smith Lake. We said Jesse and Jordan weighed in a 17.5-pound bag. They had a 448 big fish that anchored their bag. They didn't take the prize or the $1,000 home for big fish. That was Rusty White Jr. and Brian Elder. They had a 502 big fish. Those guys ended up, I think, fifth in the points, maybe fourth in second in points, 4 points behind Jonathan Collins and Derek Hicks. Really great team. They had a win at Wadowee. Really hoping they get into the regular series ABT. They missed registration. They're currently sitting on the waiting list. So Brian actually came up and asked me on Saturday, how close he was to getting into the ABT. So, but after talking to Jesse and Jordan as we wrapped the TV show, we got to hear how they felt like things went down on Saturday. We covered them really early in live, and that was the goal, is that we were going to cover them. We covered Jonathan Collins early in the live. We got to see Wesley Sams and Jeremy Tomlin. The guys that were really expected to do well at that event, Jordan Lee, Chad Hall, we covered, or as Robbie called him, Chad Lee. That's his karate name. So just really covered as many of those guys, 15 to 20 teams. And really the story of the day on live was guys were making tons of stops. We actually stopped on Josh Chappell, Paul Davis. They had one fish in the box. They said they had already hit 15 spots, and this is 9:15 in the morning. So it was a tale of just moving and chasing and hoping that they turned on when you were at a certain point. And after talking to the second place team, Chase and Chad Schroeder, it really was that. It's just making sure that you were at the right point at the right time. When I got on stage on Saturday to open the TV show or to open the live, I said, if a local guy doesn't win, you're likely going to see someone who is not from this area, who just happened to get in the right rotation, who happened to hit a point at a certain spot, a certain time of the day that fish got active. And after talking with Chase and Chad, that's exactly what they said. Trey and Leon Wade, again from Camden, Alabama, should have done well at Miller's Ferry, didn't have their finish that they expected to. They had won a lot of tournaments leading up to our event. Sometimes the home lake pressure gets to you. Sometimes you just don't get in the right rotation. Maybe they had a late boat number, needed an early boat number. But they finished third. They had 1493. Chad and Chase had 1535, led from, I think they were maybe first flighters, led into the last flight with 1535. Jesse and Jordan, I think, were in the last flight. If not, they were in the third flight. They got a little bit longer time to fish. They came in with 17.5 pounds, but pretty much had their limit. I would say, an hour or so left to go in the day. Didn't have the last cast, 5-pounder. That wasn't the case with them. But it really was about location based on what they told us when we were wrapping up the TV show. And again, you'll get to hear that in the story. You'll get to hear that in the Academy Sports and Outdoors Winners Tackle Box Roundup. And then when we air the show on December let me just make sure I've got that right. December 3rd is the first airing of the best of show of the ABT 100. So it only took 972 to get a 20th place check. That was Brent Crow and Nick Reeves. So weights were down significantly. I really can't tell you why. I mean, the fish were active. We saw a lot of people on their forward-facing sonars. We could see a lot of bait fish on that, but the fish were underneath those bait balls, and they just were not active. It was really hard to get them to strike. So that's what we saw on live. And a lot of people can say what they want to about live and forward-facing sonar. That just shows you right there. It's not as easy as seeing them and catching them. A lot of guys could see them. They talked about that. They're seeing the fish. They're suspended under the bait. They just could not get them to strike. We saw them changing lures pretty often. They would use the same 1, 4, 5 cast. You would see them change. Just getting them to fire was not as easy as some people would think, thinking of forward-facing sonar. So, that's kind of what we saw on live. Again, the fog delay, we got to talk to a lot of people. We talked to Mark McKeag, Tim Hurst. And I do want to say, I will talk about the bait report. I'll pull it up here in just a little bit. It does not show the true picture at Smith Lake. You might have heard Mark McKeag say something on live that said, this is not a tournament where you're worried about points. So if you don't have enough where you think you're going to win or get in one of those top 10 checks, you're just going to throw them back and go into the house, especially when LSU and Alabama's playing, Auburn's playing, Texas A&M. In Alabama, football still rules. But it's not a points tournament. You're not trying to make a championship. So really, if you're not here for getting one of those checks, you might as well throw them back. So we only had about half of the teams weigh in. We had 11 teams not show up that morning. And then I think half the teams did not weigh in. Again, that is simply because they did not feel like they had the winning bag or a top 10 bag. So we saw them not weigh in. There was quite a few people. Terry Tucker, Jeff Cannon, picked highly to win there, had won over $40,000 there in the last month. Certainly picked to do well there, but did not weigh in. And I talked to Terry, had 3 fish, didn't think it was going to help him, threw him back and went home. So that seemed to be the story of the afternoon as we're getting cameras turned in and trackers turned in. So but there was another big story of the day, and you're going to get to hear from him. I alluded to it earlier. The other big story of the day, Jonathan Collins Derek Hicks winning the 2023 ABT 100 Anglers of the Year title by 4 points over Rusty White Jr. and Brian Elder. They amassed a 274 points out of a possible 300. Took home the title, took home the belts, and took home that TH Marine Atlas Jack Plate prize pack. So they finished 18th in the tournament, took home a $1,500 check. And we're going to talk to Goob in just a little bit about his time on the Alabama Bass Trail, how he and I got to know one another, and again, some of the struggles that he has faced out here on the Alabama Bass Trail. So a lot to cover. It's going to be a jam-packed podcast, not just your normal fishing, lure, weight, line, depth, all that kind of thing. But I thought it was just fitting for us to bring Robbie Floyd on give him a time to talk about his time on the Alabama Bass Trail, his experience, what he has seen happen over the last 10 years, the amount of growth, the amount of change that he's seen, his work experience with the team, myself, the film crew, and all the things. So we'll be back in just a short minute. We're going to take a short commercial break, hear from some of our sponsors. But you're listening to the Alabama Bass Trail podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. We'll be right back.
Research and development is more than just time in the shop for us. It's time out here, sweating the details, making boats that work as well in the real world as they do on paper. From our R&D team to our anglers on the water, we have the knowledge and passion to build you the finest fishing platform in the world.
Welcome back to the Alabama Bass Trail podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. And there he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Robbie Floyd, the voice of the Alabama Bass Trail over the last 10 years. Welcome to the podcast, brother.
It's good to be here. I've heard, I don't know how many of them, but I don't know that I've been on one before. So it's taken a while. I did not push for it. But yeah, no, it's good to be here.
I mean, you got the face for TV. You don't have the face for radio.
Yeah, my buddy's like, "What do you do for a living?" And then like, "I'm an announcer," or no, I'm in television. Oh, you're behind. You work on a camera. You're the audio guy. No, I'm the other guy. Like, oh,
yeah, you're the important guy. The important guy.
Yeah, but they don't. I mean, they like the same you're talking about. You got a face for radio.
Well, and I certainly do. And I've tried for years to kind of go behind the scenes. And you and Chris Brown were very adamant that didn't need to happen, but. Dude, yeah. I mean, those early mornings, and I mean, you guys have it a little bit easier. You put a ball cap on and things are okay. But dude, it's not easy to get hair and makeup. And I do, of course, I do all that myself. It's not like I have a team. I'd probably look better if I had a team. But, Saturday it was funny. Everybody coming by knocking on the window of the trailer, and I've got my hair all clipped up and, half my makeup on, and Thomas is talking to me. And yeah, so that's always fun. You never know what you're going to run into at the camper. That's for sure.
Well, you say that you guys got it easy because you don't have to do the makeup and the hair and whatever, and you can always wear a hat. That's the beautiful thing. You could throw a head sock on there, but that wouldn't look as good, would it, Kay? And that's like the boots. You're going to wear your boots when you want to wear your boots, and right. You want to be presentable. But you could have wore a hat every single time we did this.
And I could have gone out on the water every single time we did this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I knew that's what you were shooting for right there. Robbie, we talked, and you and I've had a couple of times. I mean, we go to lunch together, we go to dinner together a lot of times when you're out here on the road with us. And in all aspects, I mean, you've really kind of been like my work husband. I mean, over the past 10 years, not probably the first couple of years, because we didn't really get to know each other because it was really fly in, do the show, fly out, and we really didn't get a lot of time together. But the last several years, we've had a lot of time to spend together, get to know each other through baseball, and your son's playing baseball, and just having more time, you coming in, a little bit early, playing golf with some of the guys, and then us having dinner and lunches together. We've gotten to know each other, but really early on, I mean, the first time I actually shook your hand and met you, January 31st, 2014, the day before the first event, you show up at Lake Guntersville State Park. We'd never really, other than had some phone conversations, some email conversations, dude, we'd never really met. And I don't think either one of us had a true idea of what we were about to embark on, for sure.
Right. Well, I mean, you gave me the call, and like, nobody knows anything about the ABT. It hadn't happened yet. And sure, I wasn't the first call, but I was like, I had the chance to do it. And it wasn't just about money, but I could have used the money at the time. And it's like the possibility. And I knew, I think Gerald's name was thrown in or somebody, but, I've spent plenty of time in Alabama covering, bass fishing, but never solely in Alabama for so long. And I just thought it'd be interesting and be fun and do, because again, I've worked 15 million different individual events or, solo stuff or starter stuff, but it sounded interesting. And I don't really think everyone thought it would turn into what it did turn into. But yeah, that first year was an unknown. That first tournament was an unknown. 225 boats. That's a lot of, back then it was like 200, right? Or less.
200.
It was still a lot of boats. And then, different groups when you're north and south. So yeah, it was cool. It was interesting. And it turned into something special.
I was thinking about, I think something that I took for granted too, And it really came out after COVID was just the logistics of getting you here from Dallas. Like I never
Yeah.
really thought about all the hoops and the loops and everything that you had to jump through because I just got in my Tundra and drove to wherever I was going. It really never dawned on me until I flew to Tyler, Texas. I forget what year it was. And then my flight got canceled and I had to go to Dallas to the airport. And I think I'm
Yeah.
calling you going, what the hell? Where's the rental car return? Where's this? Where's that? It's the biggest airport to drive into and so intimidating. And I just had a little bit of time
Yeah.
to get all my stuff. But thinking about the logistics of you coming to Alabama, I mean, first there was 11 times a year, and then starting in 2021, it became 14 times a year. And just the freaking logistics of getting you here was crazy. And I didn't even understand that till I really started
Yeah.
traveling a lot. It was crazy.
Yeah, people be like, "Where you live?" Dallas. Oh, and they're thinking, "Like Georgia?" No, no, I Dallas, Texas. But and it was a hike, and I have options. Every one of those options, whether it be Montgomery, if it's south, I want to fly in Montgomery, but it's more expensive. Birmingham will get full. Huntsville, for some reason, had gotten more expensive. I don't know. The defense contractors are getting, they'll pay it, so they raise it. And that would leave me with Atlanta, which I do not want to fly into almost no matter where I'm at, just because it's not fun. It's just
Right.
not good at all getting in or out or the facility. But yeah, it's not easy to come to those. But when you do that for a living, or I've done it since my 20s, you know how to do it better than most and almost everyone. But it's still a challenge, and you can't put yourself on the last flight of the night, or the second to last at times, because I could get there. And even the other day, I was flying out after our tournament was over the other day. My flight didn't leave till 10:40. Now I know I lose an hour, but it was 9:40. Our last flight checked in at 4 something. I should have made it easy. And I'm
Right.
telling you, I was one of the last 4 people that caught the plane going back. And if not, then I would have said staying overnight, paying for a full ticket the next day, because I don't do the more expensive ticket. It's a lot
Right.
harder to travel than people think, and especially nowadays.
And that's what I talked about. I looked at, after COVID, that became even harder. And we did have to reschedule 4 events. And so it made
Right.
those changes a little bit harder. But I want to go back to day one, February 1st, 2014, which seems like a freaking lifetime ago to me.
Yeah.
We talked about the other day, we've had over 9,000 anglers fish with us over the last 10 years. February 1st, we get there, it's 19 degrees. I don't remember being cold. I mentioned that to you the other day. I don't remember being cold. I don't know if it was the adrenaline that was going. I don't remember. But we blasted off 200 boats, and then we've got this downtime to think about, okay, now we got to weigh them in. That's the first day that trailer had ever been set up completely with banner hung and all the things and
Right.
fish care set up. That was really the first time. And talk about that. I mean, you've done events from
Yeah.
racing to bass fishing to, all kinds of things. But talk about, I mean, new
Olympics. Yeah.
format. Yeah, just all kinds of stuff. Talk about walking into that and just going through the process and what um your predecessor or whoever comes in after you, that's it's a daunting task.
Yeah. My successor, that I am their predecessor. But yeah,
That's it.
it's that's the one good thing, though. And I think that's another thing with you calling me is, and even though I'm a pain in your butt a lot of times, I'm sure we'll talk about that. I I try and, just like yourself, I try and see the problem before it arises. And if you've done live events, and I was doing a live events in the 90s, 92, 93, I was doing live events. That's how I was making money and doing stuff. You see the things that are going to be problems before they happen. And you mentioned everything you mentioned, all of the new stuff you had put up. The one thing you didn't mention was the electronic side of it. And every one of those guys is tied to a number, and every one of those numbers has to come up on screen, and every one of those numbers that come up on screen has to have a weight assigned to it, and that weight has to be done properly. And you've got a tournament director that's never done it with this group and everything else like that. And you've got live release, baskets that hadn't been done before. So it sounds like it's big, but it was even bigger than what it sounds like. It's hard to explain that. But again, if you put people that have been in those situations before, it makes it easier. And the same thing goes, now as things progress. And even though it was my last event the other day, I was still telling you things that if it's not going to be me, it's going to be much harder for somebody else to do down the road, because they might not have the presence of mind or being able to identify something that quickly, because you see the problem. And the other thing that other people didn't know is just say 200 boats. which is 400 anglers, and all of those names come up. You're trying to do it in a timely manner. And I know some people think you're rushed to get it through, but nobody really wants to see and talk to 200 something people. Nobody does. Those guys are there to fish, get their check, which you do better than anybody, is as fast as they possibly can. But the same thing, give them their lump on stage. And if they know they're having a tough time, hey, bud, great job. Good luck next time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the hard part with 200 boats and a limited time window to get those, you know, groups of 25 across the stage.
And that doesn't go into even talk about when it's JQs or jocks, because we actually had that happen one year. The names were spelled exactly the same, but pronounced totally different. And Ashgoja, and trying to figure out all of those intricacies about names. And you do it as well as anybody. And then connecting with our anglers. I think that's something you've done so well over the past 10 years, is being able to connect to the anglers and Lee Pitts and the back and forth with him, with Mark McKegg, you know, Greg and I just lost the other sessions guy's name. I cannot believe.
They are now in session.
They are now in session. Yes. I can't believe I forgot their name. I mean, I was just about to call it.
There's so many, but the names, and you know what? I hear them so many times. I'll go to think, I still screw up. And like you said, JQs and jocks, I'm thinking, all right, this is another joke in my mind. I'm like, Jay Quillen, Aaron. You know, this is like, which one is it?
Right.
Like, I done messed up.
It is.
But yeah, no, it's tough. But I mean, those are the fun things. And even this past week, it was a team that I'd said, you know, several times before, and I try and have fun with their name and the pronunciation. And in my mind, I'm fighting a little bit, but I was like, okay, how can I fight and still make it interesting? Because, you know, that's all you can do at that point, and make fun of yourself.
It is. And I mean, we've had some times that we've gotten to make fun of ourselves. I mean, we have, you know, when we started live, which was a totally new thing for us, we started it in October of 2019 when we were at Lake Gunnersville for the championship, and it rained. It was like,
was it cold and wet that day? I don't remember.
You don't remember,
right? My pants, they were rainproof. I sat down on the boat deck and it soaked right through my pants like I was sitting out there in my underwear. That's how wet my pants were, with waterproof pants. And that wasn't a sponsored pants. That was a Bassmaster sponsored pants that I must have thrown in the dryer too many times, and it lost all its water repellency. And it was what? It felt like it was 30 degrees and it was raining. It was cold.
Yeah, it was. It was raining sideways. It was the rain that you saw in the Forrest Gump movie. I mean, it rained and it rained and it rained. And you would think it was going to stop raining, and it didn't. And it rained sideways and upside down. It was the worst conditions. And so we started live. And literally, when I tell people this, they can't believe. I mean, we literally had iPads and earpods.
Yeah.
And that's what we had. And we were using a platform called Be Live, and we were streaming it to Facebook only. Thank God. And it was tough. It was tough staying on and off, and it was tough communicating. But you and I got to spend a good bit of time on the water and learned a lot about one another. And that was fun. But we also learned that iPads can go in the water really easily if a boat comes by too closely.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can actually pick up audio with your cell service iPad. You can actually pick audio up of bubbles as the iPad goes down in the bottom of the lake. And that was the funniest part of that sad situation, is when the tripod tipped over or the iPad went into the lake, you heard it go bloop, 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 bloop. You heard that on the live, and you're just like, uh-oh.
And we get back to the ramp, and the guys are saying we were listening when that happened. But that day, I mean, Chris had, I think, bounced his Yeti into his back windshield of his truck, or his camper shell, and shattered it. We had 2 drones meet him midair and crash. Then you and I are on the water, and I just lose it completely over something that was said, and I cannot compose myself. And we are just...
That wasn't the magic tree, was it? The structure?
Yes.
Within reason, can we talk a little bit about that, since it's a podcast?
I don't know.
A little picture. I won't paint.
Okay.
I want to paint
go
the
ahead.
middle picture. Okay, so here's what the thing is. You know, we talk about cover, structure, wood. Okay, the little teenage boy, and you might giggle if you say wood, you know, every now and then to a bunch of dudes. But when we looked out in this wood, there was this stick up. There was a phallic symbol that was sticking up out of the water. It looked like somebody's unit was sticking up out of the water. And I talked about this wood. She looks over and starts laughing. And I don't really think that much of it. And everybody on the boat's dying laughing. And I didn't see it quite the way that it was there, but everybody else did. And
it was like
what was done was done.
Yeah, and the sun ray
it
was just like right on
beaming
that
on it.
one tree. I mean, it was just
Piece of wood. Yeah.
I lost it, and there was no possible way I was regaining my composure. And I tried to get off camera, and it was just bad. It was just bad all the way around. And
That's all right.
and that was just immediate. That was just prior to us losing the iPad. I mean, same tournament, same. It was probably, to me, one of the most just unprofessional experiences of my life, really, because I just could not regain my composure. So I think we were actually covering Chris Britton and Eric Springer. They had just won Wheeler. We go to Neely Henry, you know, they're sitting high up in the points, and we're there, and then I just lose it. So that was one of the times that I kind of lost my composure while we were filming. And then the next year, that year at the championship, 2020 at the championship, we now have upgraded. We have live cameras, we have a live studio, we have brand new camera equipment. Everything is, I have promoted it, and we get to Lake Martin and nothing will fire.
Yeah. And evidently updates. So you get all this equipment and they do random updates, which means they don't tell you they're doing updates. So we came out that day and had all the equipment, everything set up, but they did an update and all this stuff maybe the night before or even the day before, but something happened that you don't know about. And people don't understand that. They just want to see the result.
Right.
And you learn, you need everything to do, but you can't explain that to somebody. Oh, I promise I did everything possible. No, you didn't, or it would be working. Well, you did, but it still didn't work. And but no excuses. I mean, and that's the thing too. Like I said this past weekend, you're not tournament director. If something happens on the water like that, they're not supposed to call you. They're supposed to call the tournament director. But what happens if something goes wrong? They don't look at the tournament director. They look at you. Right? Welcome to the show. Okay.
And you've experienced that probably closer to me than anyone. And being caught in the middle of, but it doesn't matter whether it's Clay, whether it's Justin, whether it's Scott, whether it's John. At the end of the day, it's Kay Donaldson and the Alabama Bass Trail, and that's a lot of responsibility. And I knew that going in. I don't think I really grasped the amount of responsibility that was going to be. And you've seen that. I mean, you've been there when I've got a text message that says, hey, I've got this happening. And, we were sitting at Gunnersville and someone totally outside the tournament wants to make a protest, and we've got to deal with that and what's going on social media. And you've seen me deal with that, day in and day out on different things. And it has been a trying time, all 10 years. I mean, everybody looks at it, and there are a lot of organizations that would love to be in my situation, that would love to be sold out and love to have so many teams on the waiting list and all the things. But there are times, and there are times that I promise you that you don't want it to be that. You don't want to be that person right then. So as I'm getting a text right now, hold on.
That's the way it works, right?
Yeah. This is our next guest. This is my next guest. So I was there.
Who is that?
It's going to be Goob and Derek. It's going to be the Anglers of the Year.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I can leave you stay on with them if you want to. You can stay on and harass them a little bit.
We can do that. Goob was nervous, man. I'm gonna tell you.
He was so. I know.
He was shaking.
He was, and that's what you want. You want someone who it means that much to them, and it was really cool. You talk about that, and you talk about the amount of things that you're responsible for. It's just crazy, and you've seen that. Like I said, you've been with me a lot of times when I'm dealing with issues like that. And I've called you times that I'm like, hey, this is going on, and you've got so much experience, and we've talked about that. A lot of stuff's very confidential between you and I, as it is with John and Daniel and myself, and things that I can discuss and things I can't discuss, and just getting, being able to bounce things off of you with all the experience that that you have. And it's it's been really cool to be able to share this experience with you. I wanted to ask you about, that was one of the funny moments that we've had on the water, but we've had some other moments. Can you think of a winning moment or a funny moment or a real shocking moment or something that comes to your mind over the last 10 years?
I don't know. I mean, if I look back or I think about, like fun or funny moments, I still remember the day we got those pickles, because the what you got for snacks thing was fun. Because when I'm not dieting like I am now, I can't actually eat on the water, and I'm like, dude, and I know this because the people on the West Coast, when I used to travel there, for some reason they like Vienna sausages, and that turned into one of my deals here that I would try stuff. But it's like everybody's got their own certain snack or what they can or what they can't eat, because people that are just average fans don't realize these dudes are out on the water and they can't just go hit the porta potty really quick because they're not always there. So that leads me to the bad moment when I ate something bad the night before. I knew what it was now that I think about it. It was the Walmart sushi that I went back and got extra.
2 trays.
Yeah, I had 2 batches of Walmart sushi, something else, and a little mini beer. And I mean, I'm like, it's okay. It wasn't nothing special. And I eat Mexican food every other day, but something got me out on the water, and I had my rain suit on, and we were out there, and like, oh, we think there's a bathroom there. Let's go there. There wasn't a bathroom there. And I was already, when your body's prepared, like it's time to let go, ain't gonna happen. So we had to go to Mud Island, and I call it Mud Island because that was all that was left on that island. But we pull up to this island, and it's Chris and you and me, and I have to jump on it kind of like, and I've got all my wetsuit on, and I'm like, oh no, I ain't got nothing to wipe, whether I do. And then we get that sock. Well, then I go to get back on the boat, and this is after a terrible experience that I should have pulled off a sock to begin with. And I go to step on the boat, and the boat starts pushing away, and I'm like doing the splits, and the boat's just getting further and further, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna blow out my knees, and I'm gonna get in the water. And it was cold because I had a full suit on. And thank God somehow we were able to do that. But I thought, this is it. I'm kill me right now, because I'm about to blow out everything in my knees, and I'm going to go in the water. But that was one experience. As far as winning moments, I don't know if there's one that I remember more than others, just how special it is to each person that wins. The simplest thing, like Jesse the other day, I've never won one of these. What? Like in my head, he had. Yeah. And I'd seen Jesse since, day one, and knew Jesse, from the elites, back in the day. But in my head, it just kind of skipped it. But just hearing it out of him, and this is a guy who's at the top level of national, bass fishing, say, it's good to get one of these things. I finally got one. You don't even think about stuff like that.
No, and then when you hear the story of everything they went through to get there, and and really not practicing that week because they were at Table Rock and all of that. One of the moments that sticks out in my mind, it's not a winning moment, but you got to experience this with me, was last year at Smith Lake, or 2 years ago at Smith Lake, when it snowed. It's 72 degrees the day before, 68. When we went to dinner that night at 7:30, it was 68 degrees. And at 1:15, I'm calling you, telling you we have 2 inches of snow on the ground, and it wasn't sticking.
But warm roads, it was safe. Right.
But how many phone calls from the time I met you and through dinner and through our live meeting did we get about, are we fishing? Are we this? Are we that? It's not fair for you to fish. I'm not there. I'm not this. You got to witness and go through that with me. But, we blasted off at snow till about 10 o'clock that morning. Still in the afternoon, it wasn't bad weather. It was sunshiny. It got up to almost 40 degrees that day. And Damian Willis, Tyler Cracker won, and they are the ones who gave me the most text. They probably, that team in the Peanut Gallery probably text me more than anybody else complaining. And they started about Tuesday of that week's when they started about how the wind was going to blow. Nothing but griping. It's going to be bad. And then they sent me pictures that morning of their boats under a carport with 2 inches of snow on it. And my response was, you would think with an $80,000 Phoenix boat, you would have got a cover. And they were like, oh, we did have a cover. We had them under a carport. This is how bad the wind is. And then they end up winning. So there was probably some choice words. There were probably some choice words said off camera to them when they were up on the stage. I mean, again, I had on my list the 2019 championship when we were at Gunnersville, the snow. But
but back on the Smith, that you're right. But think of all those other things, you making that decision, the snow and whatever else. These fish are wet to begin with. right?
Mhm.
So it doesn't make a difference to them.
Right.
If that snow or rain, it's precipitation, whether
Mhm.
it's snow or whatever. If it's sleet, then it makes it tougher. That's one other thing, because then it's ice and everything else. But it was snow. It wasn't doing it until a couple hours prior. The wind was blowing. Yeah, that's what made it tough, and it was cold. But if it were raining that much and windy, you would still had it. But
Mhm.
because it was cold, it was uncomfortable.
Mhm.
I think that they still turned it into a good thing. It was safe. But if you didn't feel safe, the hardest part that day was the wind and getting out of that with the snow. And the
Mhm.
deck was getting a little slippery if the snow accumulated.
Mhm.
But you had to make that call. The people don't understand. The hardest call ever, and you think about a memory, was the one, the Gunnersville event we had before Randy Howell won the Classic when it was icy. And were these roads going to clear? And that's probably the highest pucker factor moment you've ever had, because you do have to think about the anglers and their safety, and people don't give you credit for that, because you're not going to do it if you don't think it's safe, and you've
Mhm.
postponed events because of that. But
Mhm.
that was probably the toughest decision to make, and you were up till the last minute looking and making sure it was safe, and people don't see that. They're just thinking about me or mine or not, whatever. And it was people like, well, I've got to drive whatever. But those are people that are trying to drive last second. You don't do that, just like I don't try and fly in at the last second.
Mhm.
If I think that if I'm driving 8 hours away and doing like that, well, I'm going to try and get closer, and I'm going to spend that $75 or $100, at the Motel 6 I don't want to stay at. I'm going to spend that money to get myself closer. And that's what you had to look at in that particular case. But just like I don't wait till the last flight of the night to get out, don't wait till the last day to get out either. If you're not planning on pre-fishing, well, that tells me you're not prepared to begin with,
Yeah.
to get there to the lake. So don't tell me that. But yeah, give kudos to you. And that was your highest pucker factor moment of all the tournaments we've ever done, because again, you're concerned about every single one of these anglers. And that's why we do the key fobs, and we wait at the very end and check and make sure every one of those people are. So again, I know this is my podcast, but there's something that I see from the outside that people have no idea.
Right. Well, we went through that when we had to postpone Smith the year before, or in 18, 19, when we had the flood. And we had to postpone
Right.
it from Saturday to Sunday because tornadoes were popping everywhere. We literally on Saturday prior to that tournament had people calling us, barely could get their boats in the water. They were afraid they were not going to be able to get their boats in the water on Saturday prior to the tournament. We had torrential rain all week. We had tornadoes flashing everywhere Saturday.
Yeah.
We had to call the tournament, push it to Sunday. And literally within the time we put the first boat in the water to the time we put the last boat in the water is up over the gangplank. You can't get to the blast off boat without getting soaking wet. And by the time you came back in, water's already reaching the parking lot. And we had to move the weigh-in trailer up to higher ground. And then by the time they closed the back of the trailer after the weigh-in is over, literally fish are swimming
Swimming
out
right
in
in
front
front.
of the stage. Yeah, right in front of the stage. And the
Yeah.
guys are up past their ankles in water as they're closing the stage, getting things done. And you had the volunteers out there literally pulling boats onto the trailer because trucks couldn't back all the way down to get them. So, I mean,
Yeah.
we have faced, I think in 2015, when you're talking about the snowstorm coming in, we were there February the 28th, I believe. I know Josh Bragg and Joe Hartley won that tournament. We had 13 inches of snow fall on Wednesday night. I remember driving over to Scottsboro and shoveling the boat ramp. I came out of the doctor's office on Wednesday with walking pneumonia. Started snowing then, went and picked Mom and Aunt Jean up on Thursday, drove to Scottsboro. They had one snow shovel at Home Depot. Got it, went back out to Goose Pond, left the truck on so Mom and Aunt Jean would be warm. Couldn't check in the hotel yet. Shoveled the ramp and call the fire department to see, hey, is there any way you could just come down here and wet it down? Because I can really deal with a thin sheet of ice. But the problem was the guys were running over it and it was getting all mushy and you were having 4 and 5 inches of ice on the ramp. So trying to do that, yeah, that was a trying time. Being at Miller's Ferry and a tornado warning going off right when you're about to start the national anthem. So we've had that issue. I will say probably 2017 at Wheeler with all the wind and everything. That was a tough tournament. We
Yeah.
had a lot of guys really suffer some damage on their boat on that one. We've had to postpone Pickwick because of flooding. And what people don't understand, when we postpone an event like that, you have to change one hotel room. I have to change 20 hotel rooms.
Yeah.
You have to change flights. Kenny's got camera people coming from all areas. So it's a big ordeal for us. And then we have to change the event insurance rider. We have to change all of that, change polygraph examiners when their schedule's already set
Yeah,
for the
it's all
year. It's a
it's a
big
mess.
ordeal to change an event like that. Um,
Yeah.
I want to also, I talked about the logistics there of you getting here, and that COVID was threw a big monkey wrench in that as well. Um, we basically, when you were talking about the championship on 2020, we're sitting at Lake Martin. I remember you coming to the camper because that's the one camera that we had up and running, and it was actually we could get live on it, and you coming and sitting down beside me in the camper and us talking about things and what was going on and teams that we should watch. And we were basically trying to make chicken salad out of chicken shit at that point. I mean, we did that
Yeah.
a lot over the last 10 years. I do want you to talk about working with Alabama Basketball Team. I know you work with a lot of them outside of me, not only with the people from AnglersChannel.com, now with the people from WOTM, but the Alabama Basketball Team, those guys and gals that are out there every day putting that event on. Talk about that a little bit and your experience with
Absolutely.
them.
Like when we were sitting there and we were, didn't know how long the fog delay was. So I talked to John and Daniel, your tournament director and your assistant tournament director, and people that fish the tournament trail understand what they do. They really do, because they know that this just doesn't happen by accident. Every single person, what's their normal crew? 8, right around
10.
that, about 8
10.
people that 10, I'll say 8 to 10, but they're regulars. They're locked in. You have your north and your south, but the things that they're doing, like when you always say that we'll be out here at 3:00 in the morning. Well, okay, you're out there at 3. That means you have to get up before then. Now, yeah, but some of them have a good time. They might be up, till 1:00, and then be going there. But that's their prerogative. They're grown men and women
Right.
through the years, but they are there at 3 a.m. Okay,
Right.
and then they're doing all this stuff and trying to get these 225 boats out in the water safely, check, live wells, wraps around your, trolling motors. And then once you're off in the water, now the heavy lifting starts, right? Because the trailer's been parked there, but none of the other stuff's being built. And while everybody else is out there fishing, back from the old trailer, which now in hindsight, it was not a high dollar unit, but it served its purpose. But now they've got this so locked down. When we come off the water at 11:00, they're pretty much set up and ready to go. But every guy to a T knows what they're doing. And if they're not getting it done, somebody's there to help them. And you don't hear much griping or bitching. And that's something you don't hear very often. And they've went through different people throughout the years, but you have the best crew of people that you could ever ask for. And that's what's special, because the whole tournament doesn't happen just because Kay Donaldson. It doesn't just happen because John Simpson or Dana McGuire. It takes every single one of these people. And if one's missing, then somebody's got to pick up some slack. But it doesn't happen without the 13 people, or whatever that make it happen. The wizard, Mary, she sits under there and she does her job. Every single person, and a lot of them have been with you for a long time, but they're there to help you. Like I work at different levels of stuff, and guys come in, hey, you want water? Do you need a Mountain Dew? You need anything else? Like, nobody does that for me hardly anymore, and they're asking because they truly care. But like, you're about to be standing up here for a couple hours talking about something or talking about nothing, but anything to drink,
Yep.
But yeah, you do have a great crew, and I said that, and I've been to FLW, I've done to PAA, I've been to Bassmaster. They all have great people, but to do what you do and around I don't think anybody does the things quite the way that you do it, and as well as this crew does it for what they do.
I say that too. I've never met someone like Todd South, who I bet I never go without something in my hand to drink, because Todd is constantly asking, is there something else you need? Is there something else we can do? And, I was fortunate enough this year to be able to give them a little bonus at the end of the year. And I got to talk to him before we started the weigh-in on Saturday, and was able to give them a little bit of a bonus. It's certainly not exactly what I would like to give them. They deserve so much more. But, with everything that's going on in the fishing industry, to be able to stand in front of them and say that we're sold out, say that we have a waiting list, and to give them the honor and the credit that they really deserve. Because if you read anything about the Alabama Bass Trail on social media, it is about how quickly we get them in the water, how well organized everything is, how well it's ran. And that starts from the time they get their boat number to the time they, from the time they register to the time they fish their last event. And a lot of that falls on the shoulders of those guys, parking them, getting them in the water. If they're with a student and they need to be put in the water and the keys brought back to them, it's just everything that they do. And I'm amazed. I'm like you, it's a customer service mindset. Yes, there are jobs that have to be completed, but you don't have to do it with a smile, and they choose to do it with a smile. And so
Yeah.
I'm very proud of our team. And yes, we've gone through a couple directors, and each one of them have had their strengths and their weaknesses. Clay was very technical oriented. I mean, he was very much, everything was going to operate the way it was supposed to. Everything was done the way it was supposed to. Justin came in and had a little bit more computer knowledge than anyone we'd had before. Scott came in and he was an organization freak. Everything had its place. It was labeled.
With
It was
no computer
this.
knowledge.
With no computer knowledge, barely knew how to turn the computer on. So that was where he had to really spend most of his time in trying to get up to date on the computer. And all the stuff we do beforehand is on computer. I mean, the way we set boat numbers, the way we do the text messaging, all of that stuff. So he had to spend time with that. But as far as organization, you could walk in that trailer and know where the Q-tips were. I mean, if we had to have Q-tips, it was labeled, it was in its box, extension cords, bungee cords, everything. And then John comes in.
And well, no, sorry. Go ahead and do that. I got one.
Well, I was just going to talk about, John and Daniel, that, they fished with us. They know what the angler's expectation is. They have been that guy. So they know how the bar's been set, and they know that it's up to them now to reach and exceed that bar. And I think they bring a totally different style to it as well.
So the added thing about all this stuff that makes it work, the one thing we didn't say is the people that pay the entry fees. Because you've actually gotten the group of anglers that many have been around for a long, long time, but you don't have jackwagons coming in trying to stir up trouble. And well, I don't care if I'm an FLW guy, or I'm a national, professional fishing league, I'm a Bassmaster guy. You don't have stuff like that. And that's it. I've been into all of those, and I promise you they wouldn't do it any different than you would. You have good group of anglers that expect quality, deservedly, because they're paying that money, but they're also working they're doing the right thing to get there. If I ask them to don't, do this, they don't. I'm okay. I'm big enough. I can do that. No, it's not like that. The anglers themselves, all 450 of them, or pairs, do it right for the most part. The anglers are making mistakes, like trying to bring 7 fish to the boat station. I've never seen that before. That happened a couple of weeks ago. They make mistakes, but they don't cause that much trouble, other than the peanut gallery ribbing you a little bit. But those are against some of your closest friends, because you try and do the right thing. But the anglers themselves are another factor that make the tournament trail what it is. And the same thing, the other people is that you didn't mention that aren't even part of this is your behind the scenes people that you call to. Gerald Swindle's one of your closest friends. Well, you know what? He's also Angler of the Year in the Bassmaster Elite Series. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. There's a confidant. Trip Weldon, if you have a question, he's already dealt with it. He's already, you call him and you ask him and say, well, here's what I do. Now you might do it differently, but here's the way I think about it. And you might go his way, you might not, but you pick up the phone, you call. I don't care if it's Bill. I don't care who it is. You have the decency, and I'm not too big that I can't ask for help. If it was something that I might've seen, you call me and say, hey dude, somebody screwed up, or this, here's what I got. Well, here's what you should do. Here's what I've seen done in years past. So some of the people you never see are some of the people that make the tournament turn out the way it does.
I can't tell you the time that I've spent on the phone with Trip. I mean, and it's some of the most valuable time, and you just try to soak everything in as a sponge. And Gerald too. I mean, and I said this on the podcast last week, I don't live in the professional fishing world. So a lot of things happen in that world that I don't have to deal with. But it's my time on the phone with him and Trip, and even Bill Taylor, back when Bill was at FLW in my early time, were very formidable conversations for me. I can tell you right now, this job is way harder than my job as the marketing director for the Alabama Mountain Lakes Tourist Association. In that job role, people wanted me to buy their advertising. They wanted me to spend money with them, and they wanted that. And I was the one who was getting carted to. Well, now that's not the case. I'm the one having to make the hard decisions, and we're going to talk about one of those decisions when we bring Goob and Jonathan, Goob and Derek up in just a little bit. Some of the things that we've had to make decisions on. I thought it was interesting. Jordan Lee stopped me as I was leaving the park on Friday. He stopped. He was leaving. He's done practicing, and he was asking me. I was just talking to him about some of the things going on in the professional fishing world and all the things. And he asked me point blank. He said, "Why did you want to bring live production, live coverage to the Alabama Bass Trail?" And I stopped and I thought about it. And I said, because I want our guys to feel like they're y'all. I want them to have the experience of what it's like to be on the Elite Series, on the BPT, because that's a lot of them's goal. And they need to start getting used to that now, and they, I said, not half of our team or half of our people will ever do that. Probably not 10% of our people will ever do that. I said, but we're in an environment now to where you're 15 to 25-year-olds, and even I'm 51, and I want to see things instantly. That's what social media has done to us. And you can't fish a tournament in January and expect to air it in April and people still be interested in it. So the real-time information is so valuable to our clientele now. There are your older people who will wait until April to see it. But your younger audience, if you're not engaging them, and I think that was a big decision for us. It was a costly decision. Live TV production is not cheap. It's one of our biggest line items on our budget. And then doing that, you've got to have people who know about fishing out there talking about it. You can't just put, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. You can't just put a guy out there to talk about fishing and be entertaining, because it doesn't necessarily happen. If they're not familiar with fishing and they're not familiar with what people want to know, it's very hard to be successful in doing that.
And the other thing is budget. So a reason I'm not doing the ABT is because I might get to do offshore, fishing or sport fishing championship.
That's what I wanted you to talk about.
The budget. I mean, you can ask me whatever questions in a minute, but I'm just saying, look at what it takes to do the MLF stuff or what it takes to do the Bassmaster stuff. Very high budgets, and the money is still going back to somebody that's there to make money. Their job is to make money eventually, right? So they're trying to do this. You've got a skeleton crew. You can't put a camera on the boat because we've got to cover 225. For one, that you can't put a camera on the boat. It's hard getting some of the audio. We've got to make adjustments. We try and get as many people as we can on a day-to-day basis, and hopefully we stumble upon somebody that's doing something special. We try and do everything we can to go to people that should, but we saw last weekend the people that should aren't the people that do. I mean, they're two of our top three anglers of the year didn't come across the stage last week. And that means that they had probably averaged 2 top 5s in the first 2 events. You can plan for it and it just doesn't work. Right. So, but the product that you're able to put out with the budget that you have, and again, it all comes from, Mountain Lake Tourist Division, every Sweet Home Alabama, everybody else. It's to showcase these lakes, and you're doing that, and to showcase these anglers with a much, much, much smaller budget than what you expect to see from the professional level. You're bringing a very high. Now you could do different. You could take our cameramen, put them on 3 boats, mic them up, and you could make a 30-minute television show on 3 guys. Would you want that? If they're not catching them? No, not at all. You could do that. You have that choice. Instead, you get the cameras and the drones and do everything else and try and get as much as you can, the best way that you can, with a limited budget, with not looking to make a dime on it. And I know people think that sounds crazy, but that's not what this is all about. That money goes back to the anglers.
Right.
More than 100% back to the anglers. And that's what some people just don't understand. Well, we should get better television coverage in this. I mean, I work in television. I'm just going to say a number. If it takes $100,000 to make this show, well, I work on another one that does the same thing, and it'll be $1 million. Right. You don't have $1 million to make that product. It's impossible. So you're giving them a lot with the money that you have, and that kudos to you for that.
Well, I wanted to talk about that before I bring Derek and Goob in and we talk to them about being Anglers of the Year. I do want you to take a chance to tell everyone what you're going to be doing and how you and I came to this decision. This was not a, Robbie, I'm tired of this, you got to go. It was not that at all.
Yeah.
You had, you
You've
got
thought
approached
it.
with an opportunity. No,
You've
no,
thought
no,
it
no.
many times. Let's not lie to the fans.
Well, I have wanted to kick your tail several times, as you probably have wanted to
Yeah.
kick mine. But, you had an opportunity a couple years ago to go to work with Sportfish Championships. It's a different network, different type of thing. So talk about that and talk about what you're going to be doing 2024 moving forward.
Yeah, the crazy thing is it could hop around. I know they don't have a TV contract yet, but it may even be the same network. We may be seeing me lead into you or you leading to me, wherever it is. And it comes, but yeah, I've been doing the Sport Fishing Championship for the past couple of years. Mark Neifeld had this thought process of showcasing the fisheries and the best places to catch fish around North America and the Caribbean. And he's done that. And we had been on CBS Sports Network last year or the past couple of years. I'm not sure where we're going to be this coming year. But yeah, they've expanded that program. It's not just a one-day event. It's a 3-day event. And financially, that's what was best for me, being on network television. Because, again, we started the year off this year. I'm talking about Justin Herbert, and NFL players. It was a little different. And on big CBS, the same people that – that have the big shows. So it was just better for me in that case to do those if I had conflicts. But knowing that you have so many events in the winter and spring, and I have all these events that are spread out through ever, it wasn't right to you, right? You're like, I need some consistency. I need to know it's there. So I get it. I was doing motorcycles. I was doing your stuff and I was doing the SFC, and this way, please God, let it stay going for the rest of my lifetime or my professional lifetime, because I put all my eggs in this one basket. But it's not because I didn't want to be at the Alabama Bass Trail. 100% I would, and I would still if I could, but it just wasn't right for everybody involved to guess whether I was going to be here this week or not. And that's what it came down to.
Well, and I said that on the podcast last week. This was not a decision that we took lightly. It's something we've been discussing since April or May of this year. It certainly, it was a tough decision for all of us. And we are going to announce who we're going to be using or who's going to be stepping into that role next week on the podcast. So you can stay tuned for that.
You're not breaking it now? I don't get to hear?
No, you don't get to hear.
Well, there's one thing we know for certain. They're not going to be as good looking.
Well, that's true.
Can't happen. Just can't happen.
Can't happen. Can't have more charm and all wit and all that. Well, Robbie is going to stay with us as we interview Goob and Derek here in just a minute on their Alabama Bass Trail 100 Angler of the Year title. So we're going to step aside, have a short commercial break, and we'll be back in just a moment here on the Alabama Bass Trail podcast presented by Phoenix Boats.
Nobody wants to run out of power when they're on the water. There is a better way. Introducing the Charge Marine Power Management Station from PowerPole that does the work of 3 devices: a traditional battery charger, a charge on the run, and an emergency start system. PowerPole Charge.
Welcome back to the Alabama Bass Trail podcast presented by Phoenix Boats, and you have a window full of it. I'm not going to say what it is, but you have a screen full of Alabama Bass Trail right here. Welcome in your 2023 Alabama Bass Trail 100 Anglers of the Year. Jonathan Goob Collins and Derek Hicks, welcome to the podcast.
How you doing?
Thank you.
We're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. Goob, has your phone calmed down at all since Saturday?
Not much. I've been answering a lot of calls this morning because I slept all day yesterday.
I was kind of beat down. Robbie, were you? I mean, with the time change and everything, did it bother you at all?
Yeah, it was all right. I made sure and slept that, extra a little bit, that little extra hour. But I mean, it was a long day yesterday.
God, it was so long. It was so
Or
long.
2
Derek,
days.
Derek, good to see you. I know you had
You
to
too.
miss the championship or the last tournament over at Smith. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But I think I wanted to start out by saying, I mean, a lot of people it's really hard to understand. I mean, the Alabama Bass Trail, we have 1,100 anglers when you consider the 100s and the regular Alabama Bass Trail. 1,100 anglers. I don't personally know all of them, and I went for a couple years, Goob, without really knowing who you were. I had heard people refer to you a lot, and that you were the guy to know when you needed something. You were the guy to know. Kind of, me and you've had this conversation about Shawshank Redemption. You're kind of that guy to get to things that you need, and but I didn't really get to know you personally until June 15th, 2019, when our good friend Rex Chambers passed away on his way home from the Lake Eufaula event. You were fishing the South Division as well as the North Division. And I called Gerald because other than Brent, he's the only person that I had a phone number right in my phone that I felt like could get there. And he said, Kay, there's no way I'll make it. If you don't know, if you're listening, Rex was on his way home from Eufaula, was about at Montevallo around the 228 exit there on I-65. Brent passed him. They were sitting in traffic. Rex never moved. His truck never moved. Brent went back, and at that time, paramedics were giving aid to Rex and told him to meet him at the Shelby Medical Center. And Brent went on to meet them there. And then I reached out to Gerald. Gerald got in touch with Goob. Goob met Brent at the hospital before Rex's wife and daughter could get there. And that's really the first time I think I may have ever really talked to you, Goob, is when I got to the hospital there. And and I mentioned to your wife the other day how appreciative I was of your willingness to abandon whatever plans you had, whatever, but to go to the rescue of one of your partners, Brent Crow, being a good friend of yours, and then to myself, who you knew from a distance. And I really appreciated that. And I know if Rex was here to say thank you, he would, because that meant a lot for just having some friends there when Teresa and Jennifer got there. So that's how we work. That's how our family is built in the Alabama Bass Trail. We began, conversing and texting and seeing each other more at the tournaments and talking a lot more. And then, 2022 rolls around, and I get in the elevator at the championship. I think I've got a pizza in my hand and maybe a Coke in my hand. And you tell me what did you just tell me at Lake Jordan in 2022?
I'm not fishing tomorrow.
And why was that?
Because y'all gave us a piece of paper with our boat flights on it, our boat numbers and our flights and all that. And at the meeting said, keep up with this paper. You have to have this for boat check-in on Friday morning and Saturday morning. Friday morning checked in, had it. I don't know, from the time I parked the truck, dumped Blake in, parked the truck, I stopped and talked to Slick for a few minutes. I don't know if I put it in my pocket, rain suit pocket, what I did, whatever happened to it. That afternoon, I was like, what boat number are we in, Mark? He said, look on that ticket. And I couldn't find it. I mean, I tore everything apart in the boat, the truck. I was back down there after I talked to you, because y'all had a live deal in the hotel. And after that, I went back down to the ramp. It was 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I was still looking. I looked all over the place. And the cop that was down there that was watching everything, he helped me look for it, and it was nowhere to be found. And then I just come back and told Blake that we're not going to fish tomorrow. I said, they told us not to lose that paper, and I did, and it was all on me, and I took it, and I told him, and I was like, and I apologized to him 10,000 times over, and he said it was probably meant to be for some reason, and he said that's just the way it is. And then I took it, and I've not regretted it. I've not thought about it until the last couple of days, when we talked about it. But other than that, I just let it go and went on about my business. And, me and Blake's never even really talked about it since then. He said, all it did was give you more time to go gamble. And I was like, well, I kind of wished I would have had it, because I would have left with a little bit more money than I had. So
well,
that Saturday morning, but
I
went deer hunting that evening. So,
well, the thing that says to me is, you didn't call and ask me for a favor. We were friends. We've become good friends. We talk from time to time, but you didn't call and ask for a favor. You didn't ask me to break a rule for you. And that's something that's important to me and for you as an angler and Derek, you as an angler, knowing that the integrity of the Alabama Bass Trail is going to be there. That I think has been what Robbie and I talked about before you guys got on, is the integrity of the trail is why we can sell out as quickly as we do. The payout's great, the competition is great, but the knowing that the integrity and everything is going to be there is probably ahead of everything else.
I agree 100% because I know a lot of them guys, and I know a lot of them. I trust a lot of them. I trust a lot of them with anything I got. So
Right.
I mean, and I'll give them anything I got if they need it. So,
Right.
and there ain't many people I would. I mean, I know people I work with. I wouldn't help. We'll leave it at that. But
Well, I certainly appreciate it. I it hurt me because I am a friend of yours that you weren't there, but it just goes to show that you knew what the line was and you knew that Scott and I were going to toe that line. So, but now I want to talk about this magical season you guys have. What a dadgum season. Lake Wedowee, had either of you ever been to Lake Wedowee prior to going there for the Alabama Bass Trail 100?
No, other than just to pick my boats up at Eric's.
I would probably, I know I've been on the lake one time, and that was back when I was in high school. We used to go down to West Point every AA week and fish the whole week. And I think we stopped one time on the way back through, and that's the only time I'd ever been on it. And I couldn't even remember what year that was.
Well, what was your impression when we got there?
Well, I got there on Wednesday morning, and I took my Phoenix down there and fished Wednesday and a half a day on Thursday. And that's when I called him and was like, I think you need to bring my tunnel hole down here because we need it.
Yeah. And then
we're going to knock their lights out if we can get there.
Okay. Water was still down a considerable amount in January. They were still way at winter pool or below, right?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So you go out in a tunnel hole.
A lot of dirt showing.
You had to go out about what, boat 66, 67, something like that, if I'm doing the math correct, because you were boat number 1 at Smith. So we went 33 places, I think. So 66 or 67. So that would have put you kind of in that third flight time. Was that important? Did you need the extra time to fish during the latter part of the day?
No, we had them caught by what, 1:30, I guess, 2:00, I guess, something like that.
We did, and we thought we was going to be the only ones up there. Then another glass boat, come up there with us, and I was like,
we had
wow.
no idea how they got there and got back without tearing their stuff up.
It's the future Mike Iaconelli making his way up there is what it is. Everybody watches those dudes on TV going, I got this, hold my beer.
Yeah, me and Derek stopped on a stretch that we hadn't fished, or he didn't fish, and then when me and him went, we didn't fish it. Well, then we was still 200 or 300 yards from where we originally wanted to start. And I turned and looked. I was like, "Is that a boat?"
We heard it coming.
And I said a few other choice words, and I was like, "There ain't no way that's a boat." About that time, they come barreling through there, and I was like, "Uh-oh." And then they went by us, and then when we eased up there, then we stayed, a good ways from them, and then I think we seen them catch 1 or 2, and then they come back out, and we actually, when we went up to get a little closer, we stopped on a stretch that we didn't even fish, and that's where we caught the majority of them up there. And then when them guys left, we went on up there, and then I don't even think we caught one that would help us up there. Maybe caught 2 on that stretch, and then it's just like it was meant to be for them guys to get up there ahead of us and us stop on that other stretch. And I mean, we've talked about that time and time again about how that worked out that way. It was meant to be for us to go back and then just stop right there and then just fish. And then, man, and then we made 3 or 4 strips of it and caught them and called another one. And then we'd go back up it again, go down and go back up it again, and pick off another one.
Well, I
So
think you finished there with a third place finish. Did you think going into that tournament a third place finish was possible?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I really thought we could win it up there,
Really?
and
Just
Yes,
because the
I thought we
location and you're the only one that could have got up there, or you were thinking you were
right,
one of the only ones to get up
yeah,
there.
yeah, and then I guess we just didn't. It just our thoughts was that we could win up there for sure.
And we did catch two really good ones on the way back on a row of docks.
Mhm.
Coming back down that we'd found like the first day or two that we were there. That helped, but it didn't. I mean, it helped us by a little bit.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot. I mean, it wasn't. We would have had one more. Whew.
Yeah, if we would have got rid of 1 2.5 pounder, we would have really scared them bad.
You Goob, you've mentioned a couple of times, just off air with me that Wadowee was just a special tournament. It's the first time you'd really been there, just the community and how they turned out and all the hospitality that we received the entire week we were there. That's, to me, that and Camden, even though, Camden, I know was a little more frustrating just because you don't have all the cell phone signal. You don't have the internet and everything that you have in more of the other places. But you talked about the hospitality and how welcoming everyone was. And I received it from the grocery store to the Dollar General to the gas station to all the restaurants we went to. It was just a
Little
really,
motel that we were at.
oh, yeah, it was just great. They were so excited we were there.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about Eric and his staff. They rolled the red carpet out for all of us. I mean, not just us, but I mean for everybody.
Dad,
Yeah, his dad. I mean, he put me and Derek and
Alex,
Alex Davis up, and they went above and beyond.
Yeah.
So
We saw,
go ahead.
saw that just about everywhere we went. Everybody was just really glad we were there. And that's when it's fun. That's when it's fun. Then we go to Miller's Ferry, and I know, like I said, it's out there. Robbie's been there a few times with us before, so he kind of knew what we were going into. And he was able to be there.
That's the place with the rocking toilet seat, right? Where he tried bucking me off every time. So she puts me in a hotel the very first. Hotel's too big of a word. She puts me in a motel the first year. It needed some renovations, but I sat on the toilet and the entire lid just blew off of that thing and bucked me off of it. So that's how I remember Miller's Ferry from now on.
Yeah. But once you got there, the facilities were fine. We've been working on that facility since 2015, but talk about that tournament a little bit going into it. Coming off third place finish. It's 5 months later. So, there's a lot that's going, you've already fished a lot of ABT tournaments since then, but talk about that tournament.
Well, you're talking about the accommodations. So I got a buddy of mine that lives down around Enterprise. I asked him to borrow his camper, and he brought it over the week before, and he ends up hitting a bridge and collapsing the roof of his camper and brings it on. And me and Derek wind up staying in it at
with a duct tape roof.
Yes, and it worked out fine. But it seemed like obstacle after obstacle, I guess you could say. And when I fished that weekend and caught a few fish, and then he come down the next week, and we both put in up at the dam, and we was fishing around, and we had thoughts of making that run, but
we got tickets at a ramp in the middle of nowhere for not paying $3.
And then finally had to call and paid our tickets and everything. So I was like, let's just go. Let's not come back up here.
So that was a core ramp. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Ramp. And we wasn't the only ones. They was the other ones that had them little tickets on their windows too. So it was, I was like, now, and that ride, man, it was just, I wouldn't hate to know we had to make that ride that Saturday morning.
I went back up there the next day and almost run out of gas from where we put in for the tournament back up there. And that's when I knew, no, we're not doing this. So we really only had one day
Yeah.
practice for that tournament, which was the Friday. And then I really thought we could win that one too after what we found that last day of practice. And we
Does
were
Mil-
one bite away from that one too.
Does Miller's Ferry set up any closely to any of the other lakes
Neely
that we
Henry.
fish on the Neely Henry?
Yes.
Yeah.
It fishes very, very, very similar to Neely Henry.
I would have not
And
have
we
guessed
both
that.
love Neely Henry.
Yeah, I bet. I bet you do. Okay, so you finished there with an 8th place finish, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so after June 3rd, 4th, you're leading the points by 1, heading into Goob, your home lake. Live in Beaumont, Alabama, so your home lake, Smith Lake. And then you get to thinking there's Bass Fest, and then there's the Fish Talk tournament, and then there's whatever high school tournaments that are going on, and the lake's going to be fished to death, and you're going to be the first week of November. What's going through your mind for the next 5 months?
Oh, from the time we left Miller's Ferry and you text me and Derek both, it was on after that. I was a nervous wreck. And people was texting me, it's a long ways till November, long ways till November the 4th. You got a long time
That's
to
all
think
we
about
heard.
it. That's all we heard, and that's all I heard. So I
Derek?
blocked it out, worked,
Yeah. Well, how about you, Derek? I mean,
and
I knew I got to witness Goob's nervousness firsthand on Saturday. How are you handling it?
It is what it is. I mean, it's just another derby. I mean, you got to do what you got to do to get through it. You got to do your job. I mean, but you know, you just like I said, you got to do what you got to do. But I don't know. I mean, I live close to a place that fishes a lot like it, so it didn't really bother me. Other than it's just clear water, and you thought topwater bait.
But that,
So
hey, going to that last stop, and you looked at last year, I think the average to take angle of the year might have been a 3rd place finish.
Mhm.
Average, top 3. The year before that, you had to say top 10s. They're averaging top 5, but there's one event still left. And we looked at that top 5, and they were only 10 points out. You could have a swing like that really easy. And
Yeah.
6 was there. I
Yeah.
think it was good. And for us, it was great. For them, it's not so much. And that's where they had to be nervous. But
Right.
then knowing that I didn't know going into that Goob was going to have to go solo, or he didn't have to go solo, but it was the right thing to go solo. And I know Derek wasn't fishing with him. And you do know at this level, you have twice the amount of lines in the water, you've got a better chance of winning. And you
Right.
just took out that 50%. That could not have been easier for Goob. It could not have been easy for Derek, especially, but he had things to take care of.
Right. Derek, we mentioned on the air that, your dad was having some medical issues going on. You weren't feeling great yourself. So you have to stay back. You're in your shop now, running things for you and your dad, just family owned business. And I remember talking to Goob, and the first thing out of Goob's mouth was family comes first. And that's
that's right.
That says worlds about y'all's relationship. So talk about that a little bit and how it was to know that you were not going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, you fish all year long, and then you got to do that. I mean, when you got a family business, it's our livelihood. So you got to do what you got to do. And my dad's having some medical issues, and it's what you got to do to pay the bills. So if this place don't run, I don't get to fish.
Right.
So
Right.
that's what you got to do.
Well, absolutely 100% Goop supported that decision. Earlier in the week, by this time, it's not a guess of what your boat number is. I mean, you can kind of do the math. You've had your boat number on lake number 1. You've had your boat number on lake number 2. You either knew you were going to be boat number 1 or boat number 100. So I texted Goob earlier in the week, maybe on Wednesday, and said boat number 1. Goob, what went through your mind?
I really don't remember. I mean, it was like, I wanted to be at the very end so I could have all day or what little bit of extra time that was left. And I was just like, and I was thinking like last flight, like an ABT, there's so many of us. Well, the ABT 100, there's not that many of us. And then I knew that there was not a lot of people going to show up. And then I was just like, just go fishing and do what you can do and be done with it, and just I left it all out there. I done all I could. And I worried about it. I thought about it. We didn't talk much during last week because I didn't want to bother him, and I just didn't want to talk to hardly anybody. I mean,
Right.
it was, you know, I went Tuesday afternoon, I went Wednesday afternoon, I went Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then I just, I talked to who I seen, and my dad asked me Friday afternoon. He said, "How you feel?" I said, "Check with me tomorrow about 3:00." I said, and that's because it's Smith Lake. I mean, it's everything I done every day. I just told myself, just keep going, keep fishing, just keep fishing, just let it go, and then just try to find something else that's like what you find in. And I mean, and I did, and then I think it was Friday. I had a phone call, and a guy told me, said, there's a big park. And I was like, what? And I was like, I had no idea. And, I run around with slicks.
All right, we're going to back up. We're going to back up. Yeah, we're going to back up because he just said there is a 100+ boat tournament going out of the park at Smith Lake that I didn't know about until Thursday or so when you text me and said there's a 100+ boat tournament going out of Smith Lake park, out of the park up at Coleman. So yeah. And then things changed a little bit.
Yeah, Thursday afternoon I done decided that's where I was going.
Yeah.
Because I fished Thursday over on the other side, and I caught some, but I was around a lot of people that we fish against, and I thought, well, I'm just gonna. I don't want to be stepping on no toes, and don't want to make nobody mad and getting in nobody's way. So I was like, I'm going over to do my thing because that's where we've been fishing the last couple of weeks, and they've been catching some and then getting bites. But so I left, and then I just told myself just to go. I said they're gonna have to get out of my way. So I wasn't gonna be ugly to nobody. The guy, I know they got a tournament fish. It's not their. They didn't schedule the tournament, so forth. So I made 2 or 3 stops on the way over there, and then I just went, and then I really didn't have nobody bothering me. I mean, I'm assuming I fished behind some of the people because of the places I fished, and I had some bites and all that, and then it took me all day to catch them. Caught what I caught.
Okay, I knew you said that there were a 100 boat, high school tournament. I didn't know that there was a slick talk tournament. He just said the kids didn't have any choice in schedule. Are you telling me slick scheduled on top of the ABT 100s?
No.
It was the week before.
No, what I was going to say.
The week before.
That, but what I was going to say, I run around with Slick and Lake and Ryan and Fisher. They had no idea about the tournament. And so it was a ABSFA, whatever the organization is, qualifying tournament. So somebody finally found the schedule, and it wasn't on their main schedule. It was on the qualifying schedule. Well, one guy said, "Oh, there'll probably be 30 to 50 boats." So I was like, "Okay, cool, I'm good with that." And then I called Slick Friday afternoon. I said, "Is there a tournament out of the park tomorrow?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "They'll have 100 or better boats." I thought, well, I've done committed. That's where I'm going. So, and I went, and I really didn't have no issues other than I had some issues with some wakeboard.
Yeah.
Hey, to lead into that though, for some of the fans, Kay, and I know we had to deal with it, is, yeah, he's the leader. They're the leaders coming into this final day. They're the first boat that takes off. There's pressure on being that first boat and getting to your spot first and it being the right one, because there's a lot of other people that won't have that option. So you've got the pressure of this. You're the points leader. It's time to take off at first daylight, and we don't. So if you, in your head, think you're going to catch something on that first spot, you're probably not, because you're an hour and plus behind of what you're expected. This has a lot of people spinning like a top, and you don't have anybody to talk it out to. It's all going on through your head. What was going through your mind as we're just sitting there waiting because it was too dangerous to leave?
I just kept thinking, I just got to keep the trolling motor in the water and keep a bait in the water and just go. I mean, just because I was going to burn them listings to the ground, because I stayed on that trolling motor the whole time and just fished. And then I mean, I packed that Vexus as full of gas as it would hold, and then I was just went. I sent it 100% and done the best I could. But I kept thinking, man, another hour. I thought, man, 2-3 hour fog delay, that's going to be awesome. And it's either going to hurt me because I mean, I was getting bites early in the morning, and then where I stopped first thing, then you have Wesley and
Jeremy.
Jeremy stopped right beside me. Jordan and Chad Lee was across from me. You had D.D. Murphy and his son come in, and I'm like, I'm obviously in the right area. And but I'd seen boats in there, and a lot of people fish that area, but I'd stopped, I think, Wednesday on that place, and I caught one. It was later in the morning, and then I had another bite, and I just left, which I knew it was going to get fished, but I was like, first thing I'm going, because if they're coming up busting, I've been able to catch one or two on top, and I fished, and then I won't say I got spun out right off the bat, but it got to me a little bit, and I kept thinking, all right, well, I'm going to leave and go this next spot. So I left, went around the next spot, pulled up on it with nobody on it. I was just like, wow. I fired up there, get a bite, didn't commit. Fired back out there again, didn't commit. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is not good already. Cause I mean, like I was depending on something pretty early just to get me to get me started, to get the nerves down and, just to get a good feel and to get in a groove. And I didn't catch one there. And I was just like, this ain't good. And then I went to my next spot and I stopped. I could see them on the graft. I could see them on live scope. I threw across it. They'd come up a little bit, then they'd go back down. Then I'd drop down on them. They'd come right up to it and look at it, and I'd shake my bait, and then I'd start to pull it up. Then they would come up, and I'd stop it, and they would hit it in practice like that, and then they wouldn't. I mean, and I wasted another 15-20 minutes. I was like, go on. So I went on, and then I just started hitting docks after that, and it was docks and pockets after that the whole time, and then. I mean, I hit a bunch of places.
And you finished 14th on the final day? Was that it?
18th.
18th. So yeah, and you only won. The team only won by 4 points. That's 4 places. That's where I was getting the 4 from. But
right.
You're out there on the water and you're catching what you catch, and it looked like you were pretty good. And then more and more people started weighing in when you go, and they started putting themselves between you and what could possibly be somebody in front of you, and now your chances are getting tougher and tougher and tougher if somebody caught them. Was there ever a time until the last guy comes across you thought, I think I may do this when I'm out on the water, we may win this, to when you're out there on the stage going, oh my gosh, I don't know if I won this?
I didn't know till Jesse come out of the lie detector test. Everybody was telling me that I did, and by y'all's calculations of the numbers, and another guy told me the numbers, and I'm like, I said, and people was texting me and calling and all that, and I wasn't acknowledging it, and I was not. Tracy and my dad was there, and they're like, you got this. I was like, no, just quit, just leave me alone, and just let me handle this my way. And then Kay come up to me and she said, it's done. I was like, and I mean, I didn't know what to do. I mean, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to say. And I was just like, I can just breathe. But it was until the end. I mean, on the water at noon, I didn't have but one. And I was like, really? I mean, that's like I told her, I was like, that GoPro footage is not, there's not going to be much good to use off it, because I let a lot of frustration out all day. And I mean, and I got rattled later in the day, and then I just kept on, and then I just kept just chunking and winding. And then I got a bite. I caught a couple of non-keepers or a couple of slot fish, and I'd measure them. And then then I had one that was just, I mean, it would grazed 15 on my board, and I put it in there, and that gave me 4, I think, or 3 or 4. And then at one time, I checked it again, and I was like, oh, it ain't shrunk. But then I just checked it again for my peace of mind, and I just chunked it because I was like, I don't want to. If this board is any different than them up there, I was like, it wasn't that big. I mean, it was a line burner, and I just like, I ain't taking a chance, and just chunked it, and then I've stopped back on the place on the way back I gave myself to 1 o'clock, 1:10. And I came from up in Simpson and run all the way back. And I stopped on 2 places, and one place I stopped that morning. I couldn't get them to bite. I fired that skinny dip right there. And one of them, I mean, it's just a football. And they was about 4 or 5 with it. And I was just thinking, well, I don't know. I wished. And like, I never got the net out all day. I was like, I ain't jinxing it. I'm just leaving it here. It's right there. And I didn't weigh them at all. I didn't check them. Other than make sure they was 15, and then and put them in the box. And then I just fished to the better end. Then when at the very end, I thought I had 5. Well, I forgot I'd throw that one back. I had 4. I caught that last one on my last cast. I've never had last cast luck until Saturday. I made one last cast, and I mean, it landed right where I wanted to. And I mean, I made 2 turns, and it just sucked it in. And I said, and I'd set my clock for 2:55, and I'm reeling. And I mean, and my alarm clock's already going off. It's like 2:57, and it's going off, and I'm hearing it, and I'm reeling it. And I just boat flipped it. And then, I mean, I was right there, not far from the check-in. And I was shaking so bad at that point in time. And I told myself, when I check in, I'm going to weigh them just to see what I got, because everybody's told me 12 to 14 that it would probably be done, could be done. So I weighed them, and it was 10 something. And I mean, they was flopping, and I had them all out. I mean, I was just like, and I put them back in the live well, and I was just like, I don't think it's enough. And then like Tracy and my dad showed up, and I was like, I don't even know why y'all came. And then Blake said, man, I fell asleep in the chair. I was going to come. I feel bad. I said, I would have told you not to come, not to drive down here, because I didn't think I had it. But I was like, just go in, wait, do what you got to do, weigh what you got, be happy with what you did the best you could. And I did. And I mean, I was never dreamed that it would have turned out like it did.
And you went through all the emotions all at the same time. One, first it makes me wonder, did you call your shot? Did you talk a Hero Amori it? Did you say this is going to be the last cast? Did you audibly say it? I
think I did, or I told myself I can't remember if I told myself this is the last cast and I got to go. But I know I did in my mind.
Yeah.
But it was I hope that's on the video. But I mean,
you weren't going to do it. You had 4, you had 5, but you didn't want to chance it. So that leads me to the Aaron Martin's deal. Back at the Ohio River that one year, he had one that was right on the line. He threw it back in, didn't take the chance. It lost him probably the Classic if he would have won, if he would have had that one fish. But you go from not going to win it to, oh my God, I might win it, to back to, I don't think I did because they're not weighing what I think I need, to watching and knowing that there's one team with only 1 point behind you, that they just need to beat you by 1 place, probably, maybe 2 places.
I can't explain the emotions from the time I put it on the trailer. And my dad said, you want me to come hold the bag for you? I said, no, just let me do this. And I mean, I appreciate it. And I went out there, and not Lauren, but the other girl come out with a camera, and she videoed me bagging them up, and she said, good luck. I said, thank you. I was like, it ain't enough. And I was just like, I mean, I was walking up there, and Tracy, and it was like, are you going to do it? And I was like, I don't think so. And I was just like, I'm happy with how it's played out. I mean, all day, again, the emotions of not figuring, that one fish that I thought was an over in my mind, but the way that board is mounted in that boat that I bought from Brett Hyatt,
It bends.
It was mounted in the floor, and I told myself to put a board in there Thursday. Well, I forgot it. I forgot my turtle box. I was that I'm gonna tell y'all. Saturday morning when I got at the ramp and Butts put me in, I was like, "Where's my turtle box?" That wasn't in the boat. That blowed my mind, because I just love listening to music. And about halfway through the day, I realized there's a radio in that boat, but I didn't take time to turn it on. But I was just like, it would have calmed me some, I believe, during the day if I'd have had that music playing. It wouldn't hurt the fish. Everybody's like, "Oh, that'd hurt the fish." I said, "No, it wouldn't hurt my fish." Mine was as far back in these little pockets that you could see back to where it goes into dirt, and there'd be a little brown spot or black spot where there's a log or a little piece of brush or a limb. If you could get to that with that skinny dipper, there was one, if not 4 or 5 with it every time.
Derek,
So,
knowing Goob's going out solo, is there anybody else that you think you would trust to like have the confidence in that he's going to do everything in his power to bring this title home? I mean,
No, nope, not at all.
To
What
me,
was it
he
like
took
for
it very
you watching
personal.
it from the outside?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to watch this, Kay. He doesn't even get to participate. He's watching it from the outside. What do you say or do, or do you even do the live stream? Do you try and stay away from that?
Yeah, you got to. I mean, I can't watch it. I mean, it makes me feel bad, so I can't watch it. Makes me feel even worse, so I can't watch it at all.
So how did you find out?
Tracy texted me, told me that he was nervous, and I'm like, well, it's going to work out one way or the other. And then I turned it on after that and saw that he had enough. I figured he had enough when that happened. So that's when I figured it out. I just couldn't watch it.
We thought he had it because I started going through the list of 1 through 5, and I'm like, okay, they don't.
Yeah.
But there's somebody on the outside of 5 that had a shot that I didn't really count on, and they were sticking around because they were close. Again, you only won it by 4 points, but
yeah,
there's another team that was pushing hard to do it, and they damn near did it. I know Elder was sitting over there beside going, I think we might have won this.
Rusty White Jr. and Brian Elder, I was going to say they won, Lakewood Dowie kind of came out of nowhere. We didn't really know much about them until then. But they, finished 4 points behind them. I think they had like a 5th or 6th place finish. I can't remember, but
they finished 4th.
Yeah, okay, 4th. So they were 18 points out, finished 4th. So that left a 4-point gap because I think y'all were 22 ahead of them, 22 points ahead of them when at the beginning of the day. So ended up 4 points behind, I think. I mean, I don't know if you could have written it any better. I mean, as far as like the buildup of the day, boat number 1 leading the points only by 1 point and then going out solo, having the day to yourself, us being able to get you the first part of the day on live, we'll be able to talk to you and kind of see how you were, talk to you before things started. This is the ABT 100. There is a ton of good fishermen here, not just your pros. I'm not talking about Scott Canterbury's and the Alex Davises and Wesley Gore, who just made the Elite Series. There's somebody else. Justin Hamner, Jordan Lee, 2-time Bassmaster Classic winner. Justin Hamner, Bassmaster Elite guy. Jesse Wiggins, BPT guy. Not just those. Your Mark McKeggs, Tim Hurst. I mean, you got all of the dudes there. What does this mean to be able to raise those belts up and think for the next year or for the rest of your life? You're the 2023 Anglers of the Year of the Alabama Bass Trail 100. Probably one of the most prestigious, and I don't say it because it's mine. Say it because the people that are there, the people that have made it the prestigious trail, which is the Anglers, the most prestigious team trail in the country, the ABT 100. And you guys are the champs. It's pretty cool.
It's not sunk in yet. I will give you that. I've just been watching the stuff on social media, people posting stuff and people calling and texting and everything. So it's just, Like I said yesterday, I mean, I got up, ate breakfast, and went back to sleep. I mean, it's been mentally exhausting thinking about it and worrying about it, and not really. I mean, I worried about it. I mean, I ain't gonna lie about it because it's my home lake, and I wanted it so bad. You know, fishing all the regular ABTs of all the tournaments I fished, and then finally won that one on Neely Henry with Blake, the toughest one of all times as of to date. That you know, and having the guys that, like you said, Crow, Jimmy Mason, McKeag, Hurst, all them guys calling and texting me and talking to me, and and just telling me congratulations, proud of you, good job, and all that. Just it means a lot to me because I know all these guys. I know how these guys are. I know, just the caliber anglers and the people they are, good guys that they are.
Yeah, you see,
And friendship.
you see, like getting to cover the Classic, the emotion that he feels, and the stuff that he's had to deal with, and him talking about whether he thought he was there. Those are the same feelings that when I cover the Classic each year, I get to be a part of at the highest level. Everybody, that's their main goal. These guys have a chance to make the Classic via the Alabama Bass Trail. Possibilities. The same thing I was hearing out of him was the same thing I was hearing out of Jeff Gustafson this year, who I'm interviewing, thinking he won. He's thinking he doesn't. But you're seeing it true out of Goob right now. He's going through all of those emotions at a very, very high level. Find that at the Classic and know that it's having to last for 3 days, and knowing that you got to sleep between those and do the interviews and stuff. And that's why when fans watch it that one time a year and Goob watches it one time a year, he got a little taste. Imagine what it's like for those guys trying to win the Classic, knowing that if I'm leader after day one, leader after day two, and I still have to catch them on day three, you're seeing what it means to him today. That's what it means to these guys come February and March.
That's why I was a kid going, when you get up and watch it, when you're not 8, 9, 10 years old, watching it on TNN, that's what makes you want to do this.
Yeah.
Right.
It is. It is. Give us your opinion, Derek, of the 100s. I mean, you fished the regular series as well, so give us your opinion of the 100s now.
It's the best tournament trail there is, bar none. I've fished from every level. I mean, from the top to the bottom, and this is the best tournament trail there is, in my opinion.
Yeah, the 100s are special. Not that the ABT is not great, but the 100s, just that limited boat field, the caliber of anglers that you've got, the money that's on the line, the money that's there to win, to me, is just probably the best format that I see going, for sure.
And a good alternative choice too, knowing that, like you said, the entry fee is a little higher, but the payouts are higher. The talent is better, limited field. So, I mean, it didn't have to happen. Again, people think now that it's done their third year, you think, okay, it's always been there. No, it didn't. And it didn't have to happen, but you had to ask for that. And what I didn't realize is if you finish in ninth one time out of the 3 tournaments and almost in the top 10, and you got your money back, everything else is on top of that and a good payout.
Well, that's like every year the first tournament every year we've paid for our season. So that's pretty good.
Perfect. Yeah, right.
You breathe a little bit easier going into tournament 2, tournament 3. I hate that they're so spread out. We did that specifically so we could get those BPT guys and the Elite Series guys. It hadn't always worked out that well, but that was the reason behind it. But I wouldn't be sad to see the thing grow to a few more tournaments. Certainly, I love the 100 boat field. The team still loves the 100 boat field. So, well, guys, I appreciate you taking time out of your day today, Goob, walking us through that. I know, having talked to you beforehand, I knew that it was a very emotional day for you. I love the fact your wife and your dad came down. That was awesome. Derek, hate that you couldn't be there, but you were right where you were supposed to be, and I certainly appreciate that about you. I know Robbie mentioned that a couple of times on live, that you were where you were supposed to be. So appreciate y'all coming on, and forever will be known as the 2023 Alabama Bass Trail 100 Anglers of the Year. Pretty cool. Thank y'all so much.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Guys, there you have it, the wrap up of the 2023 Alabama Bass Trail 100 season from the mouths of the champs. Jonathan Collins and Derek Hicks. And we'll be back in just a moment after we hear from these commercials and from our sponsors. We'll be right back on the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast presented by Phoenix Boats.
On the weekends, some folks step up their game, like bringing home Jack's Fan Faves value meal. Our chicken nuggets, mac and cheese, and a drink for just $5.99. Now, Miss Ashley, I ain't saying she can run a post route, but she's got hands as golden as the nugget she snags. The fresh, hand-breaded, all-white meat chicken is a catch in itself. Try them with our handmade sauces. Score our Fan Faves value meal for just $5.99. It's quite a haul.
Welcome back to the final segment of the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. Robbie stuck around with us. Pretty cool event. We got to hear everything that Goo was going through. And, you know, we saw him in the trailer early Saturday morning. He came by, I don't know. I think maybe it was to calm himself down a little bit. But then there I put the belt right in his hand. I said, you might need to practice this. And he goes, I don't want to touch it. And I just kind of made him. I took his picture with it. I sent it to him Saturday night. I said, see, I told you might need some practice with this. And he said, I can't even tell you right now. Like, I'm just going through so many emotions. So that is so cool to see it affect the guys that way.
It could have been the announcer's jinx or whatever, that feeling, because there's a lot of hockey guys won't touch the Stanley Cup until they win it. You know, same thing in baseball and football. For him to do that, that's probably one of the first times I've ever seen anybody last second touch that winning trophy and win it. Might be the first time ever that I've seen.
Well, he didn't want to. That's for dang sure. He didn't want to.
Yeah.
We've got
now the big question is where is that belt going to make its rounds? You know, like I know the Stanley Cup when the Stars won, and there's guys drinking on the roof of the Pantera, the rock band, drinking cocktails out of the Stanley Cup and jumping into the swimming pool. Where is this belt going to make its rounds?
I have a feeling Wednesday night on In the Shop with Scrubs on TikTok, it'll probably make its first big appearance there. I have a feeling it's going to make its rounds. I bet we see it next year. We're 75 days away from Logan Martin. I have a feeling it'll show up there. It'll probably be like that flat Stanley. I don't know if your kids had to do that, but our kids came home with this little paper mache guy, and you had to take him to different places and make his picture. I have a feeling it'll end up a lot like flat Stanley, but you know what? They deserve it. They earned it. I'm actually waiting on the delivery of the 2024 belts. They should be here sometime within the next 30 days. They're ordered and ready and on their way. And, that kind of wraps up our season. We've got, 23 days, and we'll know the full roster of the 2024 season. Guys have a little bit more time. And then January 2nd, our other guys will pay their payments, and we'll know who's going to be in the 24 Alabama Bass Trail Series. But we've got 18 teams fixing to go down to Florida in about a month. And I like our chances down there. Jordan Wiggins, Wesley Sams won that event last time. We sent Jordan to the Bassmaster Classic. Then turned around, we sent Shane Powell the following year. So I like our chances. We've got 18 teams going down there, and I like the ones we got going down there. And I don't know why. I'm going to go ahead and say this out loud. Justin Mott went down there the year that Jordan and Wesley won. And he's going down there again with a different partner, Randall Hamilton. I just don't know why, but something is sticking out to me about them that I think they're going to have a good tournament down there. So I don't know why. They had a really good championship, didn't do as well at Smith, I think, as they had really hoped to, but they went in there holding their practice time to go to the Harris chain. So I like our odds there. Paul Davis, Josh Chappell have done well in the Bass Team Championship before. We got a lot of new teams going.
But how are they going to do on that body of water that week? I mean, we've got the talent. I don't think there's nobody, Texas, wherever, the group that you have, there's not a more talented group from anywhere in the country.
Right.
Well, I mean, I'll just say it right now.
Yeah.
Are they going to be the most talented on that body of water? Because that might not suit them. It's been a long time since I've been to Leesburg, and I'm sure it's not going to fish like Leesburg Landing. So, that's going to be the thing, is what the water is doing then, and you and your partner doing well, because it's not a solo tournament until the end.
Right. Right.
Then you've got to go up against them. And that is special in itself.
It is. And the cool thing about that is these guys are going to get 3.5 days of practice. That's the most they've ever given them. They're giving them Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and a half day Tuesday. So 3.5 days. They'll fish the first 2 days as a team, and then those final 3 teams. I just got to think, the last time we were at Leesburg, the last time we were down there for the Bass Team Championship, 2 of the top 3 teams were Alabama Bass Trail guys, and one team should have been. We should have had all 3 teams, but it was a big fish draw. So it was actually a day 1 draw. It was a tie. Total day fish, total weight of fish was the same, but day 1 was the giver. That's how they go to the day 1 weight.
Did they do that, or whoever had the biggest of the 2 days?
Maybe it was the biggest of 2 days. Yeah, biggest of 2 days.
Yeah, whoever had the largest bag of either of the days. Yeah, that's
so they went to that,
and yeah, I mean,
so we could have had all 3 on the podium. Oh, great outcome! We still got the Bassmaster Classic champion, or Bassmaster Classic contender from our group. So that was good. Looking forward to getting down to Florida on December the 4th, and then I think competition starts on 4th, 5th, 6th. Maybe.
But I mean, between the nation now, I mean, your nation qualifiers, your ABT guys, the ones that are living now on the Elite Series period, the ones that were ABT guys that will be living on the Elite Series, it's looking good. It just shows you the quality, and that's why it's special. Like for Goob and Derek to win this event and going up against the various tournament, that shows you how good you have to be, and to do it on the regular ABT trail, even tougher. And those are the guys that qualified for this. I say even tougher because you have to do it for 5 tournaments.
And your boat draw is very different too. You go through 5 different boat numbers. You're going to go through 5 of the 9 flights that you're going to be in. And, that first boat number is so key when you're looking at your boat rotation throughout the year, especially when you're looking at shad spawn as opposed to, bedding fish and all the things. So it is a little harder just because the number of boats and the boat draw and everything that you get and how key that first boat number is. So that is, to me, being able to stay consistent 5 tournaments, and they're so close together too, February through June. Right. Being able to adapt
you
to
have
all
to be
of those.
well-rounded.
Well,
and even like hearing Goob talking about having to make adjustments and doing different things, that's what these guys are going to have to do in that team championship. You're going to have to make adjustments. I don't want a guy that's been killing it in practice and then bomb on game day because I'm stuck with what they were doing in practice.
Right.
That's what happens to too many people. And I saw the council has it. I won practice, and I always say that's the Kevin Wertrow, because Kevin would tell me every tournament that he won practice. I don't want that guy. I want that guy that's trying to build up as it goes on. And like, I think I got it. And if I don't, I'm going to find a way to win. That's usually how, that's how you crown the champion.
Right. Well, guys, we've had a full jam-packed podcast today, and I'm so glad I got to have Robbie on here with me for the full time. Robbie, I cannot say enough about you, friend. I love you dearly, and I know you know that. I wish you, Kayla, Robert, and Ryan all the best in your future, and I can't wait to see them. You better be better at keeping me up to date on social media with what's going on with Robert and Ryan, and I wish you guys all the best, and please tell Kayla thank you for letting me borrow you 14 times a year, and all the phone calls in between. I really appreciate that. Think the world of you.
Thank you. Yeah, right, and I've worked with a lot of people through the years, but you are my work wife these past 10 years, and I couldn't ask for more. And I don't know how long you'll stay at the ABT, because there's bound to be a Fortune 500 company that will pluck you up any day now. And if I had an event or something I needed to do, nobody, I promise you, could do it any better than you did. So thank you very much these past 10 years. And I'll fill in a time or two in the next decade.
I sure hope so. Guys, we hope to see you back on the water in Sweet Home, Alabama. But until then, as always, God bless, good fishing, and go Blazers.
Thanks for listening to the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast. To learn more about the Alabama Bass Trail, make sure and visit alabamabasstrail.org.